Taoiseach, the government may have voted confidence in itself over the cruel decision to lift the eviction moratorium, but you would be fools if you think the public out there have confidence in you on the housing issue, and that's why I hope we will see thousands of people outside the Dáil on Saturday at 1 o'clock for the Cost of Living Coalition demonstration in response to your decision over the eviction ban. And it's not because of performance theatrics or whatever you want to describe it from the opposition that people will be there. They will be there very simply because certainly in my area, if you go on Daft or myhome.ie today, as I did just before I came in here, you will find one house in the entirety of South Dublin which is within the HAP limits, and the vast, vast majority of them are in the region of 2,400, 2,500, 3,000 and 4,000 euro a month, way above the HAP limits, if you're even entitled to HAP, and completely unaffordable for the vast majority of people. So they're in a hopeless situation, but you won't control rents, and you're still willing to allow people to be evicted into that hopeless situation. In my area, there was a handful of local authority houses built last year. So honestly, what do you expect people to do other than to protest and be angry at your failure to deliver them some sort of hope?
To Deputy Boyd Barrett's question on protests, Deputy, I have no difficulty at all with protests. Protests are an important part of democracy. They're not allowed in some countries which you champion, but they are allowed in this country, and provided protests are peaceful.
I shouldn't say that.
Well, look, are protests allowed peacefully to take place in Cuba and Venezuela and Nicaragua?
If we can just keep to the responses, please.
I'm glad that it's on the record of the House that the Deputy is not supportive of Cuba. Thank you. Good, thank you. That's a revelation.
Can we just go back to the topic, please,
and I do apologise and withdraw. I do apologise and withdraw if I was mistaken in ever thinking that Deputy Smith and Deputy Boyd Barrett were ever supporters of Cuba. I'm
sure
glad
there's another forum where you can tease
that
out.
Never been supporters of
let's
Cuba.
move on
that
back
is
to
a good thing to hear,
please,
and I'm glad that's on the record of the House today. But like I say, no problem, no objection, and welcome peaceful protest. In relation to the motion of confidence, which a number of deputies referred to, I note that we won it by a margin of almost 20. Didn't need the votes of independent deputies, but had quite a lot of them, which is very, very, very welcome, and I thank them for it. And it is difficult, given the margin of the victory, to understand why some commentators seem to be thinking in the past week or two that the government was ever under pressure, that there was ever any possibility of us losing that vote. There wasn't. This government has a comfortable majority and has a supermajority with the help of a number of independents. This is the fourth Dáil I think I'm a member of, and I haven't seen governments win votes as big, with the exception of the time we were in government with Fine Gael and Labour, when we also had a supermajority, because the two biggest parties in the Dáil were in the same coalition again. So I can give people the assurance that this government is built to last, and this is a government that can go full term. In relation to the idea of establishing a public building company, we have established a new public company, the Land Development Agency. It was opposed by most of the left-wing deputies on this House. Most was supported by the Labour Party, in fairness to them, not the Social Democrats. I'm glad that that company now exists and that it's now building housing not too far from you, Cahirlock in Shangana, and I believe in time that will be as big a game changer as the IDA and Aer Lingus and ESB were. A public house building company that's going to build homes on behalf of the state. A really positive development. It got off to a slow start, and I'm disappointed about that, but it is getting going now, and we need to give it the capital it needs to do a lot more. I think the suggestion, though, from the deputy is a slightly different one, that there should be direct labour, that it should take on construction workers, and like any idea, I think that is worthy of being scoped out. I do think there are pros and cons. There is plenty of evidence that suggests that when the government or the public sector builds something, it takes longer and costs more. And that may be for very good reasons. It might be because the workers have better pensions, because they've better pay, and because we have to go through certain public procedures. But it probably is the case that if the government does something for lots of good reasons, it's going to cost more. And it's going to take longer, and we'd have to bear that in mind in any policy decision. And it might also displace workers and displace development from the private sector at a higher cost, taking longer. And you need to bear those things in mind when you make decisions too.
We're way over time.